From Kobe Bryant turning it up against Michael Jordan in 2003 to Magic Johnson's sensational return in 1992, here are the greatest NBA All-Star games to have ever taken place. Starting, of course, with the ABA invasion in 1977. The first All-Star game, which featured the stars from the defunct ABA, that included the likes of Larry Keenan, Dan Issel, George Gervin, David Thompson, and many more. With the game airing for the first time on primetime television on Sunday night, the ABA stars decided to teach the NBA a lesson. They were minimized by the NBA, and it was their turn to make a statement. Most ABA players found themselves playing for the West, and with Julius Erving leading the line, the West edged the game 125 to 124, with Dr. J taking home the MVP honors. Unsurprisingly, I must add, he was the best player in the world at that time, so it was hardly a surprise when he dished out a 30-point, 12-rebound performance. Bob McAdoo, the Buffalo Braves ace, also came up with a 30-point display. However, it pales in comparison to this one, the 1983 All-Star Game, considered by many to be the first All-Star Game worthy of being called the All-Star Game because of all the superstars on display. However, more importantly, that game is known as the Marvin Gaye All-Star Game because of his soulful pre-game rendition of the national anthem. It was beautiful. You best believe everyone tuned in for it, basketball fan or not. As for the game, well, as you can see, it was something of a secondary event after that anthem. But once it was played, it proved to be the NBA at its wealthiest in terms of talent, featuring the likes of Magic Johnson, Julius Erving, Larry Bird, David Thompson, Isaiah Thomas, Moses Malone, and also a fella known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and a lowly George Gervin too. The game was played at a great pace, combining competitive excellence with showmanship, with Johnson and Thomas directing their great offenses, but with the East coming out on top 132-123. But how about the All-Star Game that featured the man who features as the NBA's very logo? I've got to include one of his greatest moments, right? Yes, I'm talking about Jerry West in the 1972 All-Star Game, which was a cracker, by the way. Now, I know this was really long ago, but as it has been well documented, the story goes somewhat like this. Basically, the 1972 All-Star Game featured one of the most clutch moments of all time by none other than Mr. Clutch, also known as Jerry West in some circles, who basically pulled off an insane 20-foot buzzer beater to lead the West to a 112-110 win. But that wasn't the only cool part. He was foreshadowing something very important with that play. The shot that he made was over Walt Frazier of the New York Knicks, and he'd proceed to do the same the following year to win his first and only NBA championship. Not to mention, he won the MVP honors for the All-Star Game, scoring only 13 points. Some might say he didn't deserve it, but no one can argue with the player who won it in 1988. Yep, that's right, Michael Jordan, and the 1988 All-Star Game remains one of the greatest ever. MJ had already become a superstar by then, and was having an insane season up until that point too, leading the league with more points, steals, and minutes. But can he do it in the All-Star Game? You can bet your house on it. Jordan arrived in the game after winning the slam dunk contest, with probably the greatest slam dunk of all time, at least up until that point, and then led the East to a win after scoring 40 points on the night, grabbing 8 rebounds and handing out 3 assists. Not to mention, his airness had 4 steals and 4 blocks too, and would go on to win the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year honors. Imagine having a season like that. Somehow, that was also only the beginning of what would follow. But what could possibly top that? Magic Johnson's return in 1992. That's what. The All-Star Game in 1992 was amazing, basically because the fans had voted Magic Johnson as a starter. He wasn't at the top of his game, definitely not in his prime anymore, and after contracting HIV, he had announced his retirement, but he returned because the fans desperately wanted to see him in action, and the Lakers legend and the greatest point guard of all time suited up, and didn't just make an appearance. No, he turned the clock back and produced a fan fantastic performance, leading the West to a 153-113 win, dropping 25 points and ending the night with a hug each for Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas. It sent one of the strongest messages in support of HIV and AIDS patients, and it was simply a fantastic occasion, which is why I had to include this. But talking about returns, the 2009 All-Star Game, which featured the return of the Shaq-Kobe duo in Phoenix, playing alongside each other for the first time since their failed 2004 NBA title run. Despite so much animosity surrounding the pair, the magic of the All-Star Game was enough to help them produce some more memories, which we all cherish now after that tragic ending. Shaq would only play 11 minutes, but still managed to put in 17 points and 5 boards, while Kobe, at the peak of his powers, scored 27 while coming up with 4 steals. The duo powered the West to a 146-119 blowout, and both of them were given All-Star Game MVP honors. But the one thing that deserves the mention is Shaq's entrance with the famous dance crew, Jabberwockies. Now, while I'm sure no one can argue with the ranking order in this video, the 2003 All-Star Game could easily have been number 1. However, it's settling in at number 2. 2003 was a great year for the NBA. It was the year the likes of Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and Chris Bosh joined the league. But it was also Jordan's last season. He was playing for the Wizards back then and agreed to take up Vince Carter's offer of a spot. A really kind gesture, and also an extremely important one in the grand context of history, as it labeled the passing of the torch from MJ to Kobe. Jordan would end the night with 20 points and could have won the game but missed a fadeaway jumper, but Kobe helped the West back in the game. However, Kevin Garnett got the MVP for his sensational performance. For me though, it comes in a close second to the 2020 All-Star Game. While all of these additions are iconic, the 2021 stands out for me for a number of reasons. Kobe had passed away just a few weeks ago, and he was honored by the NBA in the most magnificent fashion. As for the game, it followed a complex format, also inspired by Kobe, with each of the first 3 quarters scored separately, and the fourth played without a shot clock. The target score was 157 and played between Team LeBron and Team Giannis. It would prove to be a magnificent game. Kawhi Leonard came up with some decisive plays and would take home the MVP. And the game itself was played at a high level, featuring flashy exuberance, another ode to the Black Mamba, and remains the most iconic All-Star Game to date. Hopefully, this year's All-Star Game will be even better. See you next time.